Coming up on this episode of Once a Duck.
Anytime Illinois had like a long run, it was like a surreal feeling because it was something we hadn't experienced before. That's how spoiled we were with having a great defense.
All that and more on Once a Duck.
Where's your favorite place to take college game day? And I say every time, Eugene, Oregon.
That's right, everybody. We are back with a brand new episode of the Once a Duck podcast. My name is Sam Schmidt. Across from me right here, you've got the one, the only, somebody who was on an Oregon roster the last time they were ranked number one in the country. It's Nick Cody, everybody. Nick, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good, and if you're looking to find us on the social medias, my man over here is at Samuel101TS, and I am at Nick R. Cody, and you can always find this show at Once a Duck. And man, gotta tell you, not only was I on the team that was one of the last to be ranked number one, or the last, I was also on the last team to get a shutout, and that's what we got against Purdue. Boy, was it fun. A Friday night challenge out on the road, and the Ducks stepped up, put their foot down on the throat of the Boilermakers, and they said no. And you know what? We haven't seen a road win that was a shutout since when, Sam?
1992. It has been since the Civil War of 1992 when Oregon last pitched a shutout on the road. They were able to do so, getting a 35-0 win at Purdue, a completely dominant affair from top to bottom. The offense came out blazing. The defense, they stayed blazing. Absolutely incredible work from them, beginning to end, keeping a goose egg on that scoreboard from Purdue. Nick, tell them a little bit about what you saw watching this game, how it was for you, and just kind of your excitement for, the number one team in the country.
Well, all right. That's a loaded question. We'll address the number one in the country separately after we review this Purdue game, because hey, it's what happened first, right? They only get this because you come out with a performance like that, you show everybody, and on top of that, you had to have some things move around at the top, which they did with the Georgia-Texas game. So of course we've got to go ahead and realize rankings at this point mean nothing. It's a nice little pat on the back, some historical references, but this game in itself has a lot we can dissect. And first and foremost, it starts out with the way the Ducks came out and started this game, especially their offensive efficiency. And the first one, a highlight I got to point out, is that downfield throw to Evan Stewart right there. Almost a touchdown, but also being held on by the defender that could not stick with Evan Stewart, and getting it right down there into the red zone, which we effectively punched in. Sam, break it down for us. What did you see on that play?
Well, Nick, I got to tell you, I really think that Oregon, they've been looking to take advantage of those kind of matchups that they have on the outside all season. I really think that Ohio State game, they opened up the playbook to a degree that it's not going to be able to close up the way it was moving forward. I really, really love what they were able to do, especially getting Stewart on that big play down the sideline. Did it take a couple of chances to punch it in afterwards? Yes, it did. But a 49-yarder, just being able to beat the zone on that side. It looked like they were going to try to drop into maybe like a cover three look. Both the corners were dropping back. Evan Stewart just blazed right past him, was able to make that play. Folks, right now, I know you're watching the highlight over this as we speak, but just a really, really good play on the ball for Evan Stewart, a guy who was being held, as you mentioned, was able to hang on, make that big grab. But, Nick, something I want to ask you, and it's immediately after this, Oregon, they took the ball to start, they went down and scored, defense comes out, Purdue's able to run a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plays before Oregon has the ball back. What were you seeing from the defense all game that was so stifling?
I mean, obviously, just the things that we've already seen this season with this defensive front, even with Jordan Burchell, these guys are a matchup. If your offensive line doesn't come ready to play, they're going to get embarrassed at some point. They're going to get out of position. And when you do against guys like, oh, too many. Right now, ultimately, Mateo Uiagalelei is getting a lot of praise as he deserves. Young concrete. That man is out there playing his ass off. Derek Harmon doing Derek Harmon things. And Jamari Caldwell, man, out there, even though your job is really to be absorbing those double teams, letting your other players make plays in the linebacking core. That man is out there unstoppable, unblockable in certain plays. And it feels like we have so much versatility in the matchups we can put out there in our defensive front seven right now that we can go with. If we need to go with speed in a matchup, we have a good speed look. If we need to just really hunker down in the red zone, we've got the bodies to not only do that, but force turnovers. The way this defense is played, obviously, when you get a shutout, it feels great. It looks good. And a lot of it comes, in my opinion, from this defensive front that we've seen.
Well, in that defensive front, they were everywhere in this game, just going down the line, looking at the guys who really stood out to me. Tatum Tuioti is a name that we've brought up several times so far this season.
Nice.
Led the team in tackles this past game, 6 of them, 5 by himself, a tackle for loss and a sack as well. Jamari Cardwell, who you mentioned, he had 1.5 tackles for loss. Another guy along that defensive front, again you mentioned, but Mateo Uiagalelei, unbelievable. Just an unbelievable nose for just being able to get to the quarterback. I know that somewhere on a lost file in the ethersphere, there is a conversation with Jordan Scott where he talks about just how good Mateo is with that rip through move. And my God, he just absolutely kills offensive linemen with it, gets to the quarterback. You saw the sack he had. He had 2 tackles for loss as well. And then, of course, Derek Harmon, he had a tackle for loss. This is a team that defensive front-wise, they're able to get everywhere. And it really helps also when you have such a talented group of linebackers who are sitting in there behind. Devin Jackson had 2.5 tackles for loss. Jeffrey Bass forced a sack. Bryce Betcher with 5 tackles and half a tackle for loss. This defensive front 7, just as a full unit, they have been a problem for opposing teams.
And don't forget Devin Jackson with the sack there too, well, on the stat sheet. They definitely made everything difficult for the Boilermakers offense, man. And even though there were times that it felt like they were starting to get a rhythm, defense was very quick to get at least their grasp of what was going on. And, essentially the way the offense was playing as efficiently as they were in the first half, you knew that there was no chance pretty early. And it was awesome also to see how well Duck fans traveled to this game. Like, I was not expecting that. But man, go Ducks. It just shows you the brand is everywhere. That's why we want to hear from you down in the comments. If you were at that game, where are you from? And how long did it take you to get there? What did you end up having to travel from? And what your game time experience is like? We'd love to hear it because obviously, well, we're not making enough money from this podcast yet to go and do the show on the road. But one day, Sam, one day.
We'll get there, Nick. We'll get there some way or another. As long as these people like, share, review, subscribe, do all the things that we need them to do, we'll try to get to that at some point.
If McAfee could do it, we've got a chance.
Anything is possible, Nick. Anything at all is possible.
All right, KG.
One thing that I want to run past you a little bit and really highlight from this game that I think was awesome. Normally we do like our guys at the game segment. We were able to talk about like our big performers and everything, but something a little different I want to touch on today. With a game like this, we're able to get such a wealth of depth into the ball game. So many guys who might have been getting some of their first action. Who were some of those Ducks who maybe came on in the second half that really impressed you even if it's not their debut, in some of their first real intense action?
Well, you got to talk about Jaiya Figueras getting that touchdown down there. A great run. And I think, all our backs were averaging right around 5 yards a carry. That's always great. Jaden Lamar, he's got some flashes out there at times. Again, it's the Oregon backfield right now. I feel really, really good about, especially the coaching and recruiting in that area. Ultimately, one guy that had to step up, and it doesn't really count necessarily because he's gotten plenty of playing time already, but Kenyon Sadiq, especially with Terrence Ferguson out, this guy was making the play he had where he crossed the entire defense. That was great alone. But if you're really watching the game, he has developed so well as a blocker, and in the scheme that we're in, that you need tight ends that can go out there and get tough, not just with linebackers and edge guys, but sometimes you got to go get physical with one of those 5 techniques, help a tackle out, once in a while. And man, I've been really, really impressed with him. Let's see. We got to see a couple first plays from, at least I think some younger guys out there. McKellen.
Jeremiah McClellan got his first grab of the season.
That's what I wanted to say. I was like, yeah, I thought that guy. I mean, it's just amazing to look at our receiving core right now compared to my era. And no offense to any of those guys, but the reason they said no block, no rock was because especially like we couldn't make a lot of plays with the rock in our hand is like the way we can now. It's a little bit different, but they still have that same mentality. These guys are out there having to earn their catches in their playing time. And man, it's going to make like the receiving cores of the future, the D line of the future. I mean, I couldn't be more excited because in our time, at least I know as Ducks, it feels like every big time recruit, transfer, whatever, at the wide receiver and defensive tackle position specifically, there was just a history, whether it was academics or whatever it was, or transfers out. It almost feels like we've never been able to field a team with the level of talent at those 2 positions that this team has right now currently.
Well, and I think something that we have to be willing to acknowledge in this game, first and foremost, did they have to pass it a whole bunch? No, not really. I think there was, in this game, you had Dylan Gabriel go 21 for 25, 290 yards, 2 touchdowns, because that's all he needed to do. That's all that really needed to be done from him. And also, you got to give a lot of credit to guys that stepped up. Justice Lowe, he had 2 grabs, 28 yards. McClellan had a grab. Noah Whittington getting involved in the pass-catching game, 4 catches, 24 yards, including that really impressive touchdown grab he had, pulling it up over the top of the receiver, getting it against his helmet, getting the foot in bounds. And I think that was going to be really necessary. We knew there'd be a chance we wouldn't see Trayshawn Holden in that game. We didn't. He sat out that ball game. Lanning says he's available for the Illinois game coming up. I don't know if that means that he's guaranteed to start, guaranteed how much he's going to play, but he is available for that ball game. Seeing these guys really be able to step up in that space was awesome. It was something I was a big fan of. But one thing before we move off the offense that I want to talk about, you mentioned the running backs, you mentioned the running back room. I want to talk a little Noah Whittington with you because I've got a spot where I'm coming from when it comes to Noah Whittington. I would love to hear what you think.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm of the mindset that in games like this especially, he's somebody that you got to get rolling. I love Harris. I love Lamar. I like being able to get Gabriel going. Of course, we all know Jordan James is the feature back. But you need to have that secondary back guy. You need to have a guy like Whittington. And I think there's been a lot of conversation, especially among Duck fans, about whether or not Noah Whittington's exactly the same guy he was pre-injury. Yeah. I think they were used to a certain level of takeoff, a certain level of ability to get out and get going from him. And I think that while maybe, it's taken some time to recover perhaps, not enough people are crediting how really good those Oregon offensive lines of the last few years were of being able to create a clean hole for the running backs. A guy like Jordan James, he sheds tackles. He usually gets the first guy off of him and can get going. But for a guy who's a little bit smaller like Noah Whittington, not having those big holes, not having that same clearance feels like it might be part of the issue. But from an offensive line perspective, I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, I think just situationally, you just have to use a guy like that different, especially until he feels comfortable. But I think ultimately, the key is not right now for him to be killing these teams when we have a shutout. Him getting comfortable touches where he feels good with the football in his hands. I mean, that's all good, especially consider that Boise game. Like when we get in a close game, this is a guy we can put back there in the return game and could potentially break a big one. So keep that in mind always. I think, regardless, football is again, like people say it's a game of inches, but I don't think they realize how important it is that every single step you take, every move you make, someone's watching you. Oh, hold on. different. That's a song. But no, seriously, every single movement in football, especially along the offensive line, if everything isn't in unison, it can create a problem that a running back can't fix no matter how talented they are. So, and I think he definitely still has an elite level of athleticism, whether if he's where he's at before injury or not, he can still get back to that place. That's never, it's a fluid process right there. And especially in the game of football, it's a week to week game. Who knows how those guys are feeling? Everybody at this point in the season's got their nicks and bruises. Hopefully you're not too banged up, but hey, you got to split. At least the way we're splitting those carries is great right now. We do realize we have a primary back, and we've got enough guys that can tote the rock back there that we got to keep them fed and keep them able to get out there and trust them with ball security. I think that's the most important thing for any running back room. And hey, we trust Noah. That's one of the biggest things. And eventually he'll break and have a big one pop. But it's not just him. It's, again, a lot of that offensive front. And these guys are, again, the offensive line, we usually talk about them a lot more. But this week, not much to talk about here when you're playing in a game like this. They just played really, really solid, but I think they continue to get better and play better as 5-1 every single week. And eventually Noah's going to pop one, I think. And, eventually I think he's going to have to make some big plays for us down here in this Big Ten season.
Well, and I love what you said about the carries distribution, because in this game especially, it was super obvious. You had James.
Only 10 with James. Yeah, that's great.
James with 10, Whittington with 9, Harris with 7. That's awesome right there. That's spreading the rock around. I know you're in the type of game where you can afford to do that, but doing so is its own thing, and I really appreciated that was something that we saw from Oregon. Lastly, before we wrap up this segment, talking about that Purdue game, we were able to see one other guy that a couple of the guys I want to mention really quick as guys who kind of came in a little bit later, but still were able to definitely produce for Oregon. First and foremost, the guy that I highlighted before the season even started, Cam Alexander getting in there, getting a pick late in that ball game, preserving the goose egg. You love to see that, especially from a transfer, a guy that has a lot of talent. And also some of these other defensive backs who were able to get in there as well, whether it's Peyton Woodyard getting his first tackle this season, whether it's Roderick Pleasant getting in there, having a big pass breakup on a Purdue drive. Love being able to see these Oregon players get out there. Love to be able to see the some guys you might not expect to make big plays getting the chance to make big plays. And I think that's a pretty good way to tee up what we've got coming up here.
Absolutely, man. And with that, we put a wrap on this game. And as we look forward to the Illinois week and homecoming, there's only one guy we thought we could bring on here, and that's Oregon safety Jaiya Figueras. With us today, Oregon's Ducks safety from 1993 to 1997, Jaiya Figueras. Thank you for coming on with us, Jaiya. And first and foremost, I got to ask you, as a defensive player, what was it like for you seeing the first Oregon shutout since 2012, first road shutout since the Civil War of 1992?
Oh man, it's awesome. I'm loving the energy. I'm loving what Dan Lanning's bringing. Loving the intensity. I think the torch has been passed to Lanning, and I think the team is really just emulating his attitude. You can totally see, you can totally see his attitude and his demeanor actually coming out through our play, and it's great. I'm glad we're number one right now, but definitely not. I'm not comfortable being number one so early in the season. So yeah. I guess we're midway, but.
Jaiya, you mentioned right there that Dan Lanning's intensity, his energy. Dan feels like the first Oregon coach in a long time that's been like a defensive guy that you have there at the helm running the show. What do you think the difference that brings to this Oregon football team is? Not really having an offensive mind running the show, but really having a hard-nosed defensive guy in there.
Yeah, well, I think it makes a difference when your defense feels like your coach isn't like taking the time off, like the coach is actually involved in the defense. So I definitely feel like that they're just really intense. Like the intensity is really high. That's one of the things that just comes off the screen when I'm watching these guys. And Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons their intensity is so high, because they know coach is looking at them. They know the head coach is actually involved in the defense. So I think that brings it up a notch. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. We talk a lot on here about the more recent coaching transitions from Coach Bellotti to Chip, from Chip to Helfrich, or even the more recent coaching changes. But we are very glad to have you on to talk about, because you got to really see the first major transition in what we consider modern Oregon football. What was it like being there and witnessing the transition from Rich Brooks in 94 over to Mike Bellotti in 95?
Coach Brooks, love Coach Brooks. Came to my house. Coach Brooks is, what's a trip is I see Coach Brooks in Lanning. Coach Brooks used to be very intense like that. So that's one of the similarities I see in both of them. Um, uh, but Coach Brooks was hard nosed. I'll tell you a quick story. Coach Greatwood, Steve Greatwood, offensive line coach, he recruited me. I don't know if he coached you.
Yeah, that was my guy.
So he recruited me, came to my house, ate dinner. After the season, after I'd already graduated, I asked Coach Greatwood, I said, hey, before we got there, we were finishing ninth and 10th in the Pac-10. Like, what did you guys, what changed? Like, what did you guys change about your coaching? Like, because I think the staff had been there almost 18 years before we actually went to the Rose Bowl. And he said, you know what? We didn't change anything. We just finally found guys to believe in what we were coaching. And that's one of the things that really stood out to me. I expected it to be like, we got this recruit, we just all bought in. And it was like the stars aligning. I think we had a lot of guys with chips on their shoulders. We had a lot of walk-on guys. We had a lot of guys from the state of Oregon, because we weren't getting the 5 stars from Texas, from Florida, and since we're finishing so low year to year, we're getting a lot of walk-ons and a lot of guys from Oregon that wouldn't normally get a shot. So they ended up. These guys had chips on their shoulders. So played hard. Practice was really intense. Scout team and offense. I spent the Rose Bowl year. I was on the scout team. And yeah, man, me and Kenny Wheaton was my roommate. So sorry, I'm just totally thinking about this time. It's so long ago.
No, we love it.
Yeah. But yeah, Coach Brooks bought the intensity. After he left, we ended up getting Coach Bellotti. But a coach that doesn't get talked about enough is Charlie Waters. Charlie Waters was our defensive coordinator. His career at Oregon ended early because his son passed away, and I don't know if he stepped away totally from the game, but before he did, when he was coaching us, he was an amazing defensive coordinator. If you were to ever just watch like old tape, I mean, he bought a lot of the NFL. He bought a lot of the NFL secondary concepts to Oregon. So I think that helped from going from Aliotti to Charlie Waters. We didn't have a dip in our defense. I think the next year, from the Brooks year to the Bellotti year, going into the UCLA game, we were ranked. Our defense was ranked high in the nation. Our secondary was great. We had Alex Molden on one side. He was the first DB drafted. Then we had Kenny Wheaton, amazing defensive back. I think a lot doesn't get. I don't think. I know people talk about him a lot, but since he was my roommate, I have more of I kind of know about him more. Kenny was a great basketball player. A lot of people, we know it from our class, but he could have been on the Oregon Ducks basketball team. He was an all-state basketball player in high school. So when he came down to Oregon, if you saw his movement, he had an unorthodox movement within the secondary. So he just looked raw. He didn't look like he was going to do anything out there because, I mean, you've probably seen guys, they go to do the drills. They look terrible in drills. They're not the prettiest. They don't the ball snap. They're savages. They find a way to get the job done with no technique and like just all intensity. So Kenny was one of those guys. Very calm, really quiet guy. If you ever get a chance to interview him, you're going to see his demeanor is really chill. But he had a great year, that redshirt year. We lost Herman O'Berry. Herman O'Berry was an NFL, was supposed to be a top NFL draft pick that upcoming year, but he tore his ACL. So Kenny Wheaton came in for him, and Kenny that year, his freshman year, he basically held his own on Herman O'Berry's side like that whole entire year. So he played awesome. And sorry, I just went back to Rose Bowl year. Then we come back to Cotton Bowl year, Bellotti. Great athletes on that team. You had, oh man, Pat Johnson. He ran a low 4.2 40, 10 flat, 10 100 meters, 20-36, 200 meters, 45-07, 400 meters as a freshman. So I think the Rose Bowl year that helped us to get that type of athleticism. I think prior to that, we didn't really have like guys coming in like that. Your class definitely had way more athletes than us because, like I said, we were 9th and 10th. So we're getting the scrappy guys. We're getting the no star guys. We're getting the guys that were looked over. So it kind of helped us to play harder out there, and we were able to sneak up on a lot of teams. That Rose Bowl year, they weren't expecting us to make any noise, so it helped us. But your class, man, your class was awesome, man. I think that was the last time. I'm not sure what year it was, but that was the last time we had a shot to go to the national championship, right?
Well, I mean, my class was the 2008 class. That was Belotti's last class. So
Okay.
LaMichael and Mazzoli and LaGarrett. So
oh man, that was awesome.
Pretty damn good class.
Oh hell yeah, yes.
Kiko Alonso.
Yes.
Yeah, a bunch of guys.
Yeah. Heck. So what position were you playing?
I was offensive line, but I played everywhere. The only I didn't get snaps at center in game, but I got a few in practice. But yeah, I was kind of working all over the place.
Yeah, I was reading up on you. You started the last 13 games your senior year at Oregon.
My junior year, actually, my senior year.
Okay.
My senior year, I started my first 6 games. But anyways, I got to give Sam a chance to ask a question here, man. He's dying.
Yeah.
Well, Jaiya, one thing that actually you mentioned right there that I was hoping to touch on at some point, and I'm glad you brought it up so that we could. Believe it or not, the first interview we ever did for this podcast, it was Kenny Wheaton.
Oh, yeah. So you know, man.
Oh man, we had him on, and actually I went back and checked out a little bit of that interview this week because it happens to be this week's the 30-year anniversary of the pick. So I went back, took a look at that interview. One thing he mentioned to me was that the night before, the week of, he was telling you in the apartment all week that he was going to pick off that ball.
Yes.
Just tell us what you remember from those conversations and then the play out of that day and everything that came with it.
Oh man. So we were watching film and they had this receiver, white receiver, Jovanovic. I'm forgetting his name, but he had long hair, played slot, and was killing everybody in the league that year. So when towards the goal line, he always ran an out route, the whole week from Monday to Friday. Kenny was like every single day. Oh man, look, if he runs, I'm just gonna jump it. If he runs it out and up on me, they're gonna score a touchdown on me. I don't care if he goes If they fake it out and up, so he was like, I'm going to jump it no matter what. I'm going to jump it. So he said that Monday through Friday, because we had the videotapes at home. We wouldn't watch TV. We would just keep the film up. We would just have the film up and the film would be going. No matter what, film's going. And he's like, you know what? I'm gonna jump it. And man, here they come. Boom, here comes that receiver, comes out. And Kenny's like, he's lined up. They're at the goal line. He anticipated they were gonna run out on him. He knew that play was coming. It's not like Kenny has great reaction. He has great reaction, but what they don't talk about enough is how well he knows the game. And you find out how well he knows the game when you talk to his mom about football. His mom knows a lot about football. So I'm like, dang, if his mom knows this much about football, now I understand like how he knows so much. And he played sports from like the time he was like really little. So, but like you said, like we were saying, he's really calm and really quiet. So when he first arrived on campus, he wasn't that loud, rah, rah. He kind of just chilled in the back and like did his own thing. So that's why it came up all of a sudden, like, man, who is this guy?
Man, I love it. What I also love, and I want to know if you love, this season, we finally have some uniforms that kind of throw back a little bit more to your guys' era. I want to know what you think, especially about those green uniforms we've got.
Well, number one, I'm happy we've won in those uniforms. So I think that's the most important thing for me, because I think the worst thing, and I know that you guys have ran into it when they just talk about, oh, we're just worried about our uniforms and not winning championships and not winning. So I'm glad that they actually won in our throwbacks. This team definitely has better athletes, so. They're really filling up those jerseys. These guys are looking like awesome in those jerseys. So,
Jaiya, we've spent a lot of time chatting here, and we still have to get to this Illinois game, the famous game from 1995. I just want to hear from you first and foremost. When you guys are coming into this game, you know it's a team that has a lot of future pros on that defensive line. They've got some talent on that offense. And even through the first half of that game, it was cold, it was foggy, there were turnovers left and right. Tell us a little bit about your memory of that game, everything that kind of led up to the big moment, and then, of course, the play that's cemented you as a legend in Oregon history.
Well, thank you, sir. I think going into that game, what everybody was talking about was Simeon Rice and Ron Hardy. That's what all the talk was about. But other than that, we were so locked in, man. I think coming off the Rose Bowl, being in the Rose Bowl, playing against Paterno, playing a better second half. We didn't have a strong first half. I think we were deer in headlights. Second half, we finally realized, hey, we belong here. It was too late. It was Penn State. But that rolled through the summer. And so we bought that confidence. We couldn't really imagine ourselves losing, to be honest. When anytime Illinois had a big play, a big run on us, like it was kind of surreal to us. I remember anytime Illinois had like a long run, it was like a surreal feeling because it was something we hadn't experienced before. That's how spoiled we were with having a great defense. And that's how confident we were. So, so rolling into that week, it was the same scrappy team. We were those same guys. We were just trying to prove ourselves, prove that it wasn't a fluke. So I think we bought that attitude towards that game.
You guys definitely did. You especially, but everyone out there, if you're not already following on all the socials at Coach Jaiya, in your coaching career now, what do you think is the biggest thing you've taken from your Oregon career and passed on to others?
I think the thing that I've taken from Oregon is to learn. I think a team should be a blend of different cultures. everybody should find a way to break bread together, to have fun together, to party together, to barbecue together. Um, uh, any team that I've gone to, any team that I've coached, I'm always about bringing together different cultures that wouldn't normally be together. Um, so I think that was one of our strengths at Oregon. I think that was one of the things that changed at Oregon. Um, uh, one of the things I took was from the Malapiais, the Samoan brothers that came down. They really united our team, like the entire team, all cultures. It wasn't divided. So coaching in high school, coaching athletes, being a head coach for track, I was always about having fun, being loose, being relaxed, enjoying the moment, being present, and being scrappy and having confidence, even when, someone's bigger, faster, stronger than you. Like, okay, what can we do to compete? Maybe what if they're having a bad day? Today might be my day, So, so just being scrappy, being open, seeing hippies, saying, "Hey, what's up, man? I was in Eugene 5 years." So
Well, and as Nick said, of course, everybody, you can follow him at Coach Jaiya on social media. One thing that you posted this week, actually, I took the time this week and put together a little bit of a highlight tape from that last matchup with Illinois. You reposted that and wrote something I found really interesting that I want to be able to read. And you both basically just wrote that you started the third string for that game, but due to injuries, due to things that happened, you were in there late in the third quarter, and then by the fourth quarter, obviously you were able to have the huge strip sack and touchdown that ended up being the game-winning score. Talk a little bit about what it takes to kind of have that mindset, to like that always be ready mindset, that ready to fill in at any time.
So that week I started the week third string. By the end of the third quarter, injuries got me and threw me in the game. As far as a mindset, I think, you guys have been in Autzen. You've seen how loud it is. I mean, some of the loudest moments ever in college football. I've been in that stadium. So I was always scared of going in and not being able to do my job. I had such a like a fear of going in, the coach calling a play and me not knowing, okay, where do I line up? Should I be to the right, to the left? Where's the strength? Who am I helping? So I was always, no matter what, when I was third string, that fear was always in the back of my mind. Like, damn, what if they throw me in? What if we get a huge lead and we're blowing a team out in three quarters and they put me in for the fourth quarter and I have no idea what's going on? So I always prepared as if I was going to play. And Charlie Waters, like I was saying, he found a way to put me in. He put me in on nickel defense. He put me in on dime defense. He found a way he put me in for a play and take me out. Put me in for two plays and take me out. Just finding a way to like build my confidence up. And he did that for a lot of guys. And what Charlie Waters was able to do is he was able to use his defensive mind to make up for our lack of talent. So our lack of speed, we didn't have 4.2. Well, Alex Molden ran 4.2 something, but we weren't those guys. We were hard workers. But yeah, it was just all about being focused, man, and just, being prepared and not wanting to go out there and embarrass myself, and then blowing your opportunity because there's a guy right underneath you. So you could complain all you want when you're third string. And I know you've seen it before, Nick. Oh, I should be up there. Oh, this dude sucks. They're on the sideline pouting, right? And then they find coach injuries. Coach finally puts him in. Okay, boom. He gets blasted. He blows it. Bro, there it is. So I didn't want to be that guy. I wanted to always be locked in. And Kenny Wheaton was my roommate, man. So I couldn't let him down.
Definitely not. No, I love that. And well, I want to ask you personally you said with the difference of talent now, what do you think it is that has really separated Coach Lanning and especially his defensive staff, getting these guys so tuned in, especially with so many transfers and first year guys?
I think just from looking at the team, I think he's good at reading guys. He can look a kid in the eyes, and he can tell what that student athlete is going to bring. He can feel I think there's something about Coach Lanning that he knows. He can get a good read on what guys he's recruiting, and I think that shows in the recruits that he gets. I mean, we've had teams in the past. They'll get these guys that have all these accolades, but then they get there and they're like, "You just got beat out by the walk-on. The walk-on is kicking your ass, but you're this 4 or 5-star guy." So, but Dan Lanning, I don't think he has a lot of situations like that. Obviously, we're going to get the best talent, but we've seen teams, I don't want to name any teams in our league, but they're down here, get the top 4 or 5-star guys every year, and they're underperforming. So we're getting guys, I think, that have the attitude, that have the mentality, but Coach Lanning is able to see that. He's able to look in their eyes and be like, okay, this guy has it. This guy's a savage. I want him on my team.
Jai, we don't want to take up too much of your time, and we really appreciate how much time you've been willing to give us here. One last thing that I kind of want to ask you is, from a coaching perspective, whether you're somebody who is like Dan Lanning working with these top-tier athletes on a day in and day out basis, or you're just, volunteering for the local middle school, doing whatever, what's something that everybody can take into a coaching atmosphere and a coaching role that you think is just more important than anything else when it comes to imparting knowledge on this younger generation of athletes?
Just having fun, being relaxed, being loose, and then understanding that, the athlete that you're coaching, I mean, the chances of that athlete going pro are very, very slim. If that athlete does go pro, the chances of that athlete having a long career in the pros is very, very short. So just, being in the moment, I'm always about being present, having fun, and, finding a way to look past all the athleticism, look past all the sports, and you're actually look at the human being, look at the actual kid.
And I love that. That's such a great note. And again, if you aren't already following at Coach Jaiya on all the socials, hit him up with a follow right now, Oregon legend. And of course, we've got to get this interview wrapped up with your prediction. It would only make sense if we got what you thought the final score is going to be for Oregon, Illinois this weekend. Homecoming weekend, no pressure whatsoever.
Homecoming. Damn. Let me go with we'll have to put the second group in when we have a lead. I'm going to go with 42-14.
Ooh, I like that. All right. Well, thank you again very much, Jaiya, for your time. And as always, once a Duck, always a Duck. Go Ducks.
All right, man. Go Ducks.
Nick, it's always a pleasure to be able to get a former Duck on here to be able to talk about what's going on during their time and during the present. Usually, we don't pull somebody who has that kind of experience, that kind of knowledge of a time before both of ours, but it's always a pleasure to be able to hear from somebody as knowledgeable as Jaiya on the Oregon program.
Always, man. And you never got to apologize for talking over us in this show because, man, I'm telling you right now, when there's the only people that love listening to our voices is us. So we understand that. And we'd love to have our guests go out there and just take us back into their experience as a Duck, because that's what Once a Duck is all about.
You're absolutely right, Nick. And I will say that is somebody who, from the beginning, from before the season even started, I remember when I was throwing together those 30 years and 30 days posts, he was one of the first highlights that I was cut and pulled, and I was like, man, that's somebody we got to get on the podcast this year for this Illinois game. So I'm really glad we were able to pull that together and get it done. Plus, anytime you can find somebody who made a full strip sack and a touchdown out of a safety blitz, that's a pretty awesome pull right there.
Yeah, and not something you see, let alone, Hey, career highlights, you're lucky to have that on there. So awesome player, awesome interview, and love to have it. One thing he touched upon that, we were planning to touch upon in this right here is the Oregon Ducks going into this Illinois game being ranked #1 in the nation. Now, like I had mentioned, man, it's not about just the Ducks. The whole picture right there is so much bigger, and it's so not about the Oregon Ducks. As Dan Lanning's been telling this time, FIBU, and a part of FIBU is F everybody but us. And what that means is the entire team, and a part of that everybody but is the rankings. They really don't affect the team whatsoever if everybody's buy-in and the culture is what we expect it to be from what Dan Lanning and this team have all been preaching this entire season and off season. And I love what Jaiya said about just having that community and that really bonding of a team, because in my days when we had a shot at the national championship, that's what we really had as a culture and a team, and that we were taught as we came in as freshmen, that 2008 season, like everybody that got to that Sun Bowl, it meant so much to them because they had to go out and recorrect everything after that Vegas Bowl in 2006 with the team chemistry, and they found a way to do it. And it's so important when you're out there, not just playing football for yourself, but the guys around you. And I love that part of the conversation, and that's so much more important than a #1 ranking. In fact, that #1 ranking feels like a curse and a burden sometimes. The more you can ignore it, the better. And I'm telling you, like, oh man, my favorite coaches back in the day used to preach, you got to run from good to be great. When everybody is trying to tell you how good you are, you got to run from that. Remind yourself exactly how much better you can get, how much you have to work on. And that's the only way you can continue to be #1 and finish #1 at the end of the season. And hey, in the eyes of whether it's the AP poll or the coaches poll, or even when it gets down to when it gets to the playoff selection committee, it doesn't matter. You just take care of business on the football field every single day, not just on Saturdays, Fridays, or whenever they're going to put you in a game. But as long as you take care of it day to day, that's how you get to be #1. And you gotta earn that every day. It means nothing to anybody else. And I know all the teams I was on, our culture really believed that we were truly #1 against anybody out there. So underdog, mentality, but overall knowing your potential has the ability and the ceiling to always be the #1 team in the nation, I think is always an important mentality for a team to have.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And they're going to need to bring that mentality into this upcoming matchup because they're playing a team so far on the season has a 6-1 record. Their only loss is to the current #3 team in the country, Penn State. We're talking about the Illini of Illinois. This is a squad coming in that's going to present some challenges for Oregon for sure. They're another tough-nosed squad. They're another really, really strong opponent. They're a team that, frankly, last week playing Michigan, Michigan. We've heard people say it, and it's absolutely true. They ran the ball. They were hard-nosed. They played great defense. Nick, I'd love to hear a little bit of what you think about this matchup and a little bit of about what you think about the guy in charge for Illinois, Brett Bielema.
Yeah, I think we got to coach or play against Coach Bielema in the Rose Bowl. His right there was his last game at Wisconsin before he went to Arkansas, and he has a defensive background a lot like Coach Lanning. You could tell that guy right there loves to get after it with his defensive front and always plays hard-nosed football, and that reflects also on the offensive end. They definitely, when you say out Michigan, they definitely played a physical style of football. It wasn't, a lot of flash and dash, but, they were this season, seems like deferred a little from their traditional uniform choices, or do I say deferred or went more traditional? I don't even know. I'm so confused by these. Sam, you are our, show uniform expert. Please break down what you thought of the Leatherhead uniforms.
Well, I'll tell you this. Usually my take is if you're throwing back to leather helmets, you've thrown back a little bit too far. And I don't mean that. I don't mean that in terms of like it's terrible. I actually thought the hand painted look was kind of interesting and it was something a little bit different. But my main problem is that it's really hard to emulate on a current college football uniform what was printed on a sweater. And that's exactly what they were wearing at the time. They were basically just wearing hockey sweaters without the tie in the front. Whether you're having those big stripes up the top, whether you're wearing the pants that makes it look like you're not wearing pants, kind of like Iowa State tried to do a few years ago. I mean, look at if you're getting results like beating Michigan, then maybe that's something that you got to be doing. But I think I'll be a little bit happier to see Illinois rocking the more traditional orange and white look coming to Autzen this coming weekend.
Well, that's why I'm glad you're able to give us the kind of breakdown everybody's looking for here at this show, uniform breakdowns. And that's why I thought I could out throw back Illinois by throwing back to a shirt that I had, one of my first Duck shirts as a committed Duck. I got this in 2007, Sam. It's so old, it's still got the Disney logo up on there. And, well, you can tell how faded and starting to get some holes in there. Still fits. So, well, that's kind of it's kind of bad if I go back and look at my 300-pound self. This didn't fit for a while there, a couple of those years when we started this podcast. But you know what? I'm back in the game, baby. We're back into it. Anyways, with uniforms aside, these are two teams right now that at least everybody's going to be watching. You've got the 12:30 kickoff, or at least their time, Eastern time, 3:30. You're going to have everybody watching the number one team in the country. What are some of the things fans need to look out for this Illinois team, Sam?
Well, I'll tell you what, on offense, it does start, as always, with the quarterback. Luke Altmaier, number 9, you're going to be able to see him doing quite a bit against this Oregon team. So far in the season, he's completed 120 out of 182 attempts for 1,506 yards. Completion percentage around 66%, so doing a pretty solid job right there. 15 touchdowns, and most impressively, only 1 interception. So he's been taking really good care of the ball for this Illini group. Then rushing, they've got a pair of running backs who can definitely be a problem for you. Fagan and McCrary, the running backs, 67 carries for Fagan. He's got 306 yards on the season, averaging 4.6 a carry. He's got 3 touchdowns. Josh McCrary, he's got 58 carries, 231 yards. Also, 4 yards per carry. Again, 3 touchdowns for him. The Illinois, they do a very good job of kind of spreading the rock around. They also have a couple of other backs who have gotten a fair amount of carries this season. So you can definitely expect them to be spreading the wealth on offense a little bit, specifically out of the backfield. And in terms of receiving, much like Oregon, they've got a couple of guys who are kind of steps ahead of where everybody else is at. Pat Bryant, 31 grabs. Zachariah Franklin, 30 grabs. 484 yards, 327 yards. Both of these guys get active, but it's Bryant that they're looking for in the red zone. He's got 7 of the 15 total receiving touchdowns this season for Illinois. And on defense, I'll tell you the guy that you really have to keep an eye out for, especially if you're Dillon Gabriel in this game. That's going to be the linebacker, Gabe Jackus. Excuse me if I messed up the name. 25 tackles, 17 of them he was assisting on. The real number here that I'm looking at, 5.5 sacks so far on the season. He's somebody who can absolutely get to the quarterback and absolutely make life difficult for you back there. And he's going to be trying to do so all game long, trying to get to Dillon Gabriel, make life difficult for this Oregon offense.
Yeah, he's going to try and jack us up. Is that proper pronunciation there? No? Okay. Well, if I'm going to butcher, at least I'm going to have some fun with it. Anyways, I think the most important thing looking at this game, especially a Coach Bielema coach game, and the best way to go ahead and stop what he's trying to do is to disrupt your offensive front. And that's exactly what I think we had a lot of success being able to do against that Russell Wilson-led offense in Wisconsin, that 2012 Rose Bowl. And I think obviously not with the level of talent that they have in the backfield right now at running back and quarterback. I think, honestly, the Oregon Ducks really need to continue to just have this defensive line wreak havoc and allow these guys to just eat everything in sight with the way we align to their packages and matchups in this game. And especially if our offense can continue to play efficient early and the Autzen crowd can be loud as expected, we can get them in the hole early and just be able to put this game away. And I think, honestly, build up a decent lead. And I hope we can maintain it, because it would be really difficult to be in a let's say Idaho or Boise State situation with a team like this, because that really plays into their hand with their style of play.
Well, you've got to stay clean against Illinois as well. This is a team that's +7 in the turnover ratio right now. They're doing a really good job forcing other teams into making mistakes. 8 total interceptions on the year, 5 fumbles recovered, even though they've caused 10 fumbles so far. They're averaging more than a fumble forced per ball game thus far. They're doing a really, really good job of forcing other teams to make mistakes. It's something that you're going to have to look out for, especially on the Oregon offense, a group that's done a pretty good job so far, but you never want that one game to come up, sneak up on you. Got to be locked in, got to be willing to take care of things in this one for sure. Just another couple of guys that I want to take a look at really quick. Matthew Bailey, he's their leading tackler so far, defensive back. He's got 48 of them, as well as an interception, forced fumble, a pass deflection. And then a couple other guys who can for sure get to the quarterback. Briggs Jr. on the defensive line. He's getting a lot of hype for a lot of really good reasons. He's got 2.5 sacks so far this season, 1.5 for the linebacker, Dylan Rosick, and Seth Coleman as well. You know, Bielema team, they're going to be aggressive. They're going to get after the quarterback. They're going to do what they can to create pressure. It's something this Oregon team's going to have to look out for in this matchup.
Absolutely. And again, it just Big Ten going here on forward, controlling the football, securing the football is going to be at the foremost of your attention. And when you're on offense, man, securing the football, making sure you don't turn it over, that's going to lead to key success. And again, as always, minimalizing procedural and pre-play penalties. Yeah, I said that right the first time. Oh, my goodness. That's how you know, guys, we're getting to the end of the show. Hey, at least we both represented right here. We'll be wearing the same matchup as the teams. We've got the black, yellow, black combinations. Not often we do this. You know, we don't talk about what we're going to wear beforehand, but it's usually pretty good when we line up together, Sam. I like this color combination.
We nailed it. I know at least a few of our interviews in the past, we've been told this is a favorite uniform combo. I believe Terrell Turner told us that. A couple other people have.
It's one of my favorites, man. That's why that's my favorite picture right there. The black and yellow.
And that's exactly the type of energy Oregon's supposed to bring in here, whether it's that 2010 black and yellow energy. This is a uniform combo, believe it or not. Oregon's undefeated in it. I believe 5-0 all time wearing the black, yellow, black combo. If you want to add the nightmare into that as well, you can add a couple more as well because they won wearing it against Arizona in 2019. Oregon does really well wearing the black, yellow, black. And of course, it'll be the second showing of the Stomp Out Cancer uniforms for the season. We saw them their full debut against Michigan State. They looked phenomenal. Honestly, if I'm going to give you my opinion, I think that's still the best look of the season so far. It was so good, whether the black helmet with all the added detail, the O with the ribbon, the colors within the helmet bumper. All a phenomenal look. And then, of course, I've got to shout out our friends over at Van Horn Brands. I know you got yours already. Mine just came recently. Shout out to he's on the way, man. We always appreciate having them. And not to give you too much of a look ahead because nothing's confirmed yet, but we have done a little speaking with them. There's a chance you might see them on next week's episode, at least Quinn, if not both of them, just to be able to talk about maybe one more thing Oregon has coming up this season. But again, shout out the fellas for sending these along. I appreciate them. Very excited to see that Stomp Out Cancer uniform again this week against Illinois.
Always appreciate it. And yeah, again, as much as, especially in October, we can get that message and that uniform out there. Man, that's so important. Fuck cancer.
Absolutely, brother.
All right. Well, it's the time we usually dread, but at least we prepared for it for once. We've got predictions, and this time, rest assured, we are not going to already have the opportunity to change our predictions or anything. We already have them written down right here, right now. So, question is, do we put them up at the same time?
I'm willing to do it if you are. It's.
Oh, all right. Countdown. 3, 2, and. I've got Oregon. All right. I can't see yours.
You got Oregon 41, Illinois 10.
Do I, though? My trick here is I can argue with my hands and the arthritis I have right now in them. That could be 42-20 also, right? Right?
Is it 42 or is it 41? Are we taking 2 field goals or are we getting 6 touchdowns?
I made my 1s or 2s the same. I'm just saying I've got some wiggle room here.
Nick, I've got to tell you, I've got this one finishing 38-17 Oregon. I think it'll be another game where they flirt with that 40-point mark, but don't quite get there within conference play. Credit to the Ducks, though. 5 touchdowns and a field goal feels about right. This Illinois team, they're going to be able to get to the end zone once, twice, maybe tack on a field goal as well. But by the time things are said and done, I think it's going to be at least somewhat of a comfortable victory for the Ducks.
Yeah, and I've got it 41-10 if we play good and 42-20 if we don't. Uh, so yeah, as I looked back at it, I was like, I'm pretty sure I was going 41-10, but I could convince myself. Anyways, guys, I am so happy that Jaiya was such a great guest. Make sure you're following him if you're not already at Coach Jaiya. And if you're not already following us at Samuel101TS, at Nick R. Cody, or at Once a Duck, that where you should already be following. If not, make sure you're following, you're subscribed on YouTube or your relevant podcasting app. We'd love to hear from you down in the comments who you'd like to see in future episodes and just what your prediction is for the game, or like we said, your previous experiences with the Purdue game last week. We'd love to hear it all. Any of that, we'd love to be able to share with you guys here on the next show. And hey, maybe we go live here in the next couple days, or future shows, again, could be live streams. So you want to be following us so we can share that link with you guys.
That's absolutely right. We're going to be looking into doing the live shows more. They've been a lot of fun, the ones we've done so far. It's not always completely possible to do one and be able to get the guests we want on here. So sometimes you're just going to see the normal Friday morning releases. But when we're able to go live, we will. And we hope to have you all interacting with us on there. Of course, as Nick said, at Once a Duck on all social media. He's at Nick R. Cody. I'm at Samuel101TS. Folks, it's homecoming. It's going to be a lot of fun. Share your experiences, share your photos, share however you want to share about it. We're excited to see. If you want to, drop some predictions in the comment, drop some comments, or just tell us how wrong you think we are. We're always willing to take that kind of engagement as well. Nick, do you have anything else for him?
Hey, man, and even then, Illinois fans, let us know if you think we're wrong, because we'd love to keep receipts.
Folks, you heard it here first, and you're going to hear it plenty of more times. But, Nick, tell them the words.
Once a Duck, always a Duck. Go Ducks. Thank you guys for joining us. We love you, and thanks for supporting our show.